So, have you ever wondered why people are so quick to stereotype while refusing to be stereotyped or not wanting to be stereotyped? Me too. So, let's get into it. So, people stereotype very quickly because the human brain relies on shortcuts. Yet, people resent stereotypes when they're the ones being reduced, creating a cycle where everyone categorizes others while rejecting being categorized themselves. This same dynamic shows up in conversations about accountability. When marginalized people call out harmful behavior, systems, or cultural influence, whether discussing LGBTQ representation or racial injustices or the historic oppression created and maintained by whiteness. Those being challenged often reframe the criticism as phobia, hate, or division to deflect responsibility. In both cases, the pattern is the same. Stereotypes and labels become tools used to distort perception, shift blame, and protect the status quo by preventing honest accountability for the realities people continue to face. Hey, I'm not gonna lie to y'all, I really hate that blacks can't swim stereotype, so I'm gonna explain to y'all where it comes from. Part 1. So the blacks can't swim stereotype didn't come from ability, of course not. You know that. It came from systemic strategic denial of access and terroristic violence. Now let's get into it. Black/African people could always swim historically, even before colonization. Africans along rivers, lakes, and coasts swam, fished, and navigated water with ease. Swimming was a normal survival skill and recreational activity in many African societies. Even during slavery, enslaved Africans used swimming to escape plantations, swam across rivers to freedom, were sometimes selected as sailors or dock workers for their swimming abilities. So niggas even got opportunities and jobs for their swimming abilities. Like, swimming was our thing back in the day. Fun on guard. Until, just wait. Hey, I'm not gonna lie, I really hate that blacks can't swim stereotypes, so I'm gonna tell you where it comes from. Part 2. Segregation and denial of access caused the shift. As public pools became common in the United States in the early 20th century, cities built elaborate whites-only pools and only in rich areas. Black communities were denied access or forced to use underfunded and dangerous pools. Some towns never built black pools, knowing it would limit swimming education. Pools were seen as intimate white spaces. Unlike schools or buses, pools involved bodies, bathing suits, and contact, which made white men scared for their lives or for losing their bitches, pretty much. And they labeled it as racial contamination and said that that was why they didn't want to swim with black people. What the fuck is racial contamination, nigga? You just didn't want a nigga to fuck your bitch. I'm not gonna lie, I really hate that black people can't swim stereotypes. I'm gonna tell you where it comes from. Part 3. They even went as far to poison and put acid in pools to make sure that black people wouldn't swim. You know what I'm saying? Yes, this is no rumor. White people actively use violence to scare black people out of the water. Examples: 1951 St. Louis. I got another one, hold on. And 1964 Monson Motor Lodge in St. Augustine, Florida. During a civil rights protest at a segregated hotel pool, the white owner poured acid into the water while black teens swam. This was caught on camera and broadcasted globally, and nobody cared, and he didn't go to jail. Across the United States, pools were drained, shut down, or even filled with concrete rather than shared with black people. So this wasn't just a denial. It's deliberate anti-black violence attached to water in an attempt to scare blacks away or from the water. What the fuck? Listen, I really hate that stereotype that black people can't swim, so I'm gonna tell you where it comes from. Part 4. So because of lack of access, underfunded city programs, parents who couldn't swim, threats of violence, acts of violence, poisoning, acid attacks, trauma from violent, poor history, many blacks had fewer chances to learn swimming in the 20th century, 21st century. That's not cultural, that's systemic racism and oppression. You understand? According to the CDC, 70% of black children in the United States can't swim, not because of genetics, but because of history and exclusion. You did. Listen, I really hate that stereotype that black people can't swim, so I'm kind of going to explain to you like the origin of it and where it comes from and why it's not a joke. Part 5. So this turns a system of violence into a joke, like we just don't want to swim. It kind of blames blackness instead of exposing white supremacy. White supremacy's control over leisure, safety, and public spaces. It's the same pattern as blacks don't like to hike or surf or go to therapy. These are lies built on exclusion, not choice or personal choice. You understand? So black people don't have a fear of water. The system fears us in it. Because water was always a site of escape, resistance, and healing. They tried to drown that legacy. Don't let it continue. Fuck white supremacy, right? We gotta stop all of the shit that comes from it as well. Even racism. Amongst ourselves. We have to acknowledge the racist shit that we do amongst ourselves or spread that comes from white supremacy in order to stop it. Fuck. We can't be like, oh, we hate the white man, but we gonna do everything that the white man created. Like niggas that still spam IQ as like some type of insult. Like nigga, Alfred Benet and motherfucking John D. Rockefeller would not be proud of your stupid ass. Actually, they would be proud that their brainwashers are still working all of these years later. They'd be like, these niggas are terrible people. These people they're like abominations to their people. They're still using our shit that we created all these years after we died. And we created this shit to brainwash them while we was alive to make us billions for a couple years. You know what I'm saying? You niggas still pushing agendas that you think, like, you niggas is still out here pushing agendas that the white man created while saying that they hate the white man. Like, what the fuck? The fuck? Listen, I really hate that blacks don't tip stereotypes, so we're going to be talking about the origin of it, where it comes from, and why it's not no goddamn joke. Part 1. So the blacks don't tip myth is rooted in slavery, post-emancipation exploitation, anti-black labor practices, and economic injustices, not in behavior, character, or culture. In the late 1800s, after slavery ended, black workers were often hired in service roles like porters, barbers, waiters, and train attendees. Employers, especially in the South, refused to pay them a real livable wage, arguing they would tip instead. This wasn't kindness. It was and still is a loophole to keep black and just any worker underpaid, dependent, and serviceable. Example, the Pullman porters. So the black people don't tip stereotype is a white projection. By the 20th century, black people were systemically underpaid, overcharged, redlined, and excluded from wealth-building opportunities. Yet, when they entered a restaurant or cabs or any type of form of public service, they were treated as if they wouldn't tip, even if they did. So the stereotype became like a reason for bad service. Many black people worldwide report being ignored, rushed, or even seated last, receiving smaller portions or fewer refills, or even having tips added to the bill automatically, even if that isn't a restaurant policy. Like, they don't add gratuity usually. They just see black people, so they're not gonna tip, so we gonna add it to the bill automatically. Like, you don't do that. You don't do that. Don't try to steal money from me just because you thought I wouldn't tip you. What the hell? Listen, I really hate that stereotype that black people don't tip, so I'm gonna be explaining the origin of it, where it comes from, and why it's not no goddamn joke. Part 2. So, the average black family has a fraction of the wealth of the average white family in the United States. Tipping is a luxury expectation built on stolen labor and historic poverty. And yet, ironically, studies show black Americans tip at a similar or better rates than whites when they receive fair, respectful service. The myth simply persists because of racism. These stereotypes give restaurants and service workers justification to discriminate. It lets white supremacy say, see, black people are ungrateful or rude, while ignoring centuries of economic trauma. It discourages service workers from seeing black customers as deserving of equal treatment, feeling a cycle of bias. Listen, I really hate that blacks don't tip myths. I'm going to be explaining the origin of it, where it comes from, and why it's not no goddamn joke. Part 3. The lie that black people don't tip came from a time when we weren't allowed to be paid at all. Because we've always given what we had to family, communities, and to each other. It's not about generosity. It's about survival and resistance. It is. Tipping is a scam to make the customer employ the worker and not the billion-dollar industry that the fucking worker works for. Stop doing it and they'll be forced to pay people a livable wage. Plus, it's rooted in slavery, and in almost every other country in the world, it's super disrespectful to tip a motherfucker. That should tell you something. Like, even in a third world country, I can't tip a motherfucker. Like, goddamn. So now we're going to discuss the deadbeat dad myth, where it comes from, and why it was forced onto black families. You did? And this is just post-slavery, because during slavery, you could just Google that, right? Like, family separation. That's where the deadbeat dad myth comes from. Like, obviously, duh. Like, what the fuck? Everybody was getting sold all over the fucking world. Duh. The daughter might be sold to a different family than the mom, and the mom might be sold to a different family than the dad. That's where the deadbeat dad myth comes from there. But post-slavery, why it continued. Let's talk about that. So the no man in the house welfare rules from the 1930s through the 1960s forcibly removed black fathers by threatening families with a total loss of benefits if a man was present. Creating a government-engineered father absence that had never existed in black communities before, naturally. After the state physically pushed black men out, politicians and the media flipped the blame by inventing the deadbeat dad stereotype to make it look like a cultural flaw rather than a policy-made crisis. Justifying mass incarceration, child support criminalization, and heavy policing. You understand how all of this shit is connected? Let me get back to it. As generations of black women were forced to survive without male partnership, first through welfare surveillance, then through incarceration, stealing potential partners. Now watch how I break this shit down for you folks. Listen. This survival mindset gradually transformed into the modern I don't need a man attitude that many black women have today. Which feels empowering to them, but was shaped by conditions imposed on them. The painful truth is that this independence narrative often functions as the final stage of the same system, turning black women into unknowing program pawns in a strategy designed to separate them from black men, while convincing both sides the division is natural. You dig? This is all part of the plan to get rid of black people. You dig? So I keep seeing non-black people say the reason they don't mess with black people is because we don't stand together. But there's a reason for that, I promise. Unfortunately, now listen. Centuries of slavery, black codes, Jim Crow laws, redlining, COINTELPRO, and mass incarceration policies like the war on drugs deliberately fractured black communities by criminalizing unity, destabilizing families, and rewarding survivalism over collective progress. These systems force black people to compete for limited resources, creating cultural divides and biases within the community, seen in prisons as racialized gangs or cliques, and in everyday life as classism, colorism, and regional rivalries. While internalized racism fuels distrust and resentment towards one another, leaving many trapped in the individualistic crabs-in-a-barrel mindset that unknowingly upholds the very structures of oppression designed to prevent true solidarity. Go. Okay, don't forgive or don't forget, bitch, I'ma hold a grudge.